It's an urgent fight against one of the world's biggest terror threats, Al-Shabaab, an arm of al-Qaeda that has been terrorizing Somalia for nearly 2 decades. Their targets, citizens, government officials, and diplomats in southern and central Somalia, even attacking civilians in neighboring Kenya and Djibouti. The terror group is the largest and richest al-Qaeda affiliate. They overpower the Somali forces in sheer number of fighters and in weapons and equipment. The terror network has shown no mercy in trying to topple the government and take over the country to establish an Islamic State. We embedded with U.S. forces training the Danab, elite Somali military troops, as they participated in live fire drills, hand-to-hand combat, and learned how to face their biggest threat from Al-Shabaab, roadside bombs or IEDs.
Counter IED training takes place here, which is very important in Somalia.
This is the senior enlisted Navy SEAL in charge of working with the Somali troops. We cannot identify him for security reasons.
IEDs pose a significant problem, so some of our troops provide that support as well. And basic marksmanship, patrolling, tactics, small unit warfare tactics.
Officials here say as many as 2 of every 5 of these new Danab soldiers will be wounded or killed in combat. About 350 recruits graduated today. They're now Somali Special Forces, and dozens of these men and women will be on the front lines in the battle against Al-Shabaab in a matter of days, including a handful of women like Second Lieutenant Shukri Yusuf Ali.
Yeah, it's giving women opportunities. That's a very big opportunity. That's something like we're proud of.
At 21, Ali was one of the first females to join the Somali troops. Now, at age 24, she's seen combat firsthand.
I wasn't afraid at all. I would actually go again.
You would go again?
Yeah.
Do you see yourself staying in the military for your entire career?
Yeah, since it was a hobby from childhood, yes. And I see myself going up.
This graduation, a harsh reminder of Al-Shabaab's brutal tactics, including assassinating political and military leaders. At Baladogle Airfield, a former Soviet airbase where the U.S. trains the elite Somali Danab forces, the training camp was officially renamed after Major Hassan Tour, targeted and killed earlier this year by Al-Shabaab. His death is driving the Danab to fight even harder, and for U.S. troops here, it was like losing one of their own.
It's almost like losing a teammate, I never thought I would say that in my many years, but I've come to really be proud of what the Somalis are doing. I haven't seen this in Afghanistan or Iraq.
This mission is not unique to Somalia. Small elite teams of U.S. military special operators are working with local forces around the world, fighting Al-Shabaab in Somalia and East Africa, battling ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and ISIS offshoots in Afghanistan and into Pakistan, and combating the spread of al-Qaeda's ideology through a number of terror groups and affiliates in West Africa.
This is a much different U.S. military presence than the presences of the past in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Chris Mayer focuses on special operations and counterterrorism at the Pentagon.
These are not large combat deployments, and they're focused principally on empowering the local partners to deal with the threat themselves.
Do you see these small groups as more of the norm going forward to take on terror?
I would say it already is the norm because we don't have large combat formations like we once did of hundreds of thousands in some of the areas that Americans are familiar with in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Is this a dangerous mission for the U.S. military?
Absolutely, it's a dangerous mission, but I think one we take with well-conditioned and well-considered risk.
The Somali government has vowed to drive Al-Shabaab off the land they control, but their military is too small to hold areas after they're cleared, leaving local militias to police the newly freed land, often with no training and armed only with their own personal weapons. The African Union provides almost 20,000 troops and helicopters to support the Somali military, but their presence is now scheduled to end in late 2024. Ambassador Mohammed El Amin Suef leads the African Union mission in Somalia.
So those localities, the remote area, there is no rule of law.
Suef says the country will still need support after Al-Shabaab is pushed out of areas.
There is no governance. There is nothing, including, the basic infrastructure. So what we are doing now, and we appeal the international community to support the Somalis, once they liberated some of those localities.
The Somali government has asked the U.S. to train more Danab, as many as 5,000, and to lift an arms embargo so the Somali military can compete with their well-equipped, well-funded adversary. In addition to training, U.S. troops provide critical support to the Somali troops, including surveillance from overhead drones and airstrikes. This exclusive video shows Somali forces taking back territory that al-Shabaab once held. This is the Joint Operations Center. The video was first seen here, where the U.S. military monitors drone feeds of Somali special operators during missions. When trouble arises, the U.S. can provide support with airstrikes.
There's very deliberate considerations and a checklist that we take into account before we provide this requested support to defend our partners.
Decisions like these made by the commander of the U.S. Special Operations Task Force, East Africa. We cannot identify him for his own safety. As live fire drills blast in the background, he tells us he turns down more strikes than he approves, often to avoid civilian casualties.
One strike won't win or lose this war, but one bad strike will take that authority and capability away from us and have ramifications that impact not only us, but also the international community that's here supporting Somalis.
He knows that often means not being able to help the Somalis he works with every day.
It is tough. It's something I think about every day. Like I said, it's a human aspect of this job that we all have to take very seriously.
Another human aspect, the population here is vulnerable. More than 90% of the country's wheat comes from Russia and Ukraine, which remain locked in a fierce war, putting Somalia's food supply at risk. And for months, the country has been suffering from its worst drought in recorded history, destroying crops and killing more than 3 million livestock. Today, nearly half the population of Somalia is starving. To make matters worse, as the Danab clear an area, the fleeing al-Shabaab fighters burn the crops, kill the livestock, and poison the wells, leaving locals on the brink of a famine. Is the world doing enough to help the Somali people?
No.
Larry Andre served as U.S. ambassador in Mogadishu until May 30th.
We need the other rich countries, traditional partners of Somalia and those who have not traditionally supported Somalia during times of drought, to step up as the American people have.
Without international help, Somalia's food crisis could turn into a full-blown famine.
The threat remains. So we really need to see Somalia's partners, traditional partners, new partners, respond to this human tragedy and bring about the support that is necessary to keep famine at bay.
As they do in Somalia, U.S. troops in Syria face risks every single day. The mission to stop ISIS from growing its next generation of fighters, many living in camps like this one, the Al-Hol refugee camp in northeast Syria. In 2019, when ISIS collapsed, thousands of family members of captured or killed ISIS fighters fled here. Now, some of these refugees enforce the terror group's brutal rules inside the camp's walls, kidnapping, raping, and beheading those not loyal to ISIS. There's more than 50,000 residents here at Al-Hol. The vast majority are women and kids. And with overcrowding, poor sanitation, and at times shortages of food and water, this population is extremely vulnerable to violent extremism from groups like ISIS.
ISIS is certainly trying to prey on this population.
We met Major General Matt McFarland here. His troops support the local Syrian Democratic Forces who secure this camp. Do you think that this camp is secure right now?
I think the camp is secure, but there's opportunity here for ISIS to foment its violent ideology.
Camps like these are breeding grounds for ISIS to recruit and train fighters, even growing an army of young boys loyal to the terror group. Meanwhile, the roughly 800 U.S. troops in Syria helped the local Syrian opposition forces secure this camp and the roughly 12,000 ISIS detainees held in prisons, all while battling the ISIS fighters still on the loose. Are these missions having a real impact on these terror networks?
I think they are. I think we're seeing on a regular basis these networks being really attrited.
In Somalia, Ambassador Andre says the small, elite U.S. military units are having an impact, supporting local forces who are fighting terrorists there so the U.S. doesn't have to face them at home.
We know that al-Shabaab has killed Americans. They have, as an al-Qaeda affiliate, they aspire for attacks on the homeland. So this is in our interests and it's in Somalia's interest. So we have a shared objective, shared goals, shared interests.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.